Welcome to Down in Front. I am Andy Neitzer. Still, Joel Jettlesworth. Also, welcome.
Today
We're talking about. Oh, hold on.
professionals here on Down in Front.
Okay. Today we're talking about
Alvin
and the Chipmunks
and
and
Squeakquel.
the Squeakquel and Sherlock Holmes and Antichrist. So it's a family-friendly show. So Joel, talk about.
Oh, okay.
What do you think? What are we doing first?
Let's do Alvin.
Alvin.
Let's get that out of the way.
Alvin and the Chipmunks is the Squeakquel to Alvin and the Chipmunks.
How clever is that?
The movie.
Squeakquel.
Sure.
I can't stand this stupid Chipmunks movie. Sorry. I am a Chipmunks fan. Saw the best Chipmunks ever was the Chipmunks Adventure in 1987. That was like the big chipmunk thing where they go around the world. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was great. And the cartoon was, I really enjoyed it. And they always had cool, like, poppy songs and things like that. And they kept the pop songs, but they turned the Chipmunks into something completely different.
Like the High School Musical Chipmunks.
Yeah, yeah. And I haven't seen High School Musical.
Yeah, you have.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I promise I haven't. But
you should.
And I didn't see the first Chipmunks. The first Chipmunks I didn't see because Theodore ate a piece of poop in the trailer. And I don't want to see my Chipmunks. Do you remember that?
Was it poop, though? I thought it was...
Yeah.
So because in the trailer he may or may not have actually eaten poop, you didn't see the whole movie.
I refuse to see the Chipmunk movie.
It's a chipmunk.
Yeah.
It's an animated chipmunk.
Let's talk about animated chipmunks. The CG chipmunks are creepy as all hell.
Yeah.
They've been taking all these animated movies and putting them into CG and making them look realistic. And some of these things just do not work. And one of them is these tiny chipmunks, because they actually make them chipmunk size. Mm-hmm. But in the Chipmunks cartoon, they're like they're like little people height. They're not little tiny things. So they're adding this whole element of them running around and being like hanging on to a football when they're playing football. Sorry, I had a little bit of a brain problem. But they've changed the size of them, and by bringing them down in scale, and they're doing the concerts, it's like you have to watch it from the big screen, and it changes everything. And the only thing that they really kept were the names and kind of the tones of the voices. Mm-hmm. And the story is the same thing we've seen over and over again. The school's going to lose their music program. They're going to have a big music fundraiser, and the winner gets $25,000 to save the school. Now, I mean, we could name off how many times that's happened. I think even in Sister Act that happened.
2.
Twice?
Sister Act 2.
Is that Sister Act 2?
Yeah.
All right, with the kids.
That's Lauryn Hill.
Lauryn Hill, right. But I wanted to see this one because they brought in the Chipettes. So I thought it was going to be more like...
Who were voiced by Amy Poehler and Christina Applegate and... Keep talking, I'll remember
It doesn't matter. They're all high-pitched and toned, and they're in the little bodies of the chipmunks. They add no personality to them. I mean, as far as the Chipettes go, they're just carbon copies of the chipmunks. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what are they doing there? This one was just a big waste of time, honestly. And I'm so upset that Jason Lee had to play Dave. I love Jason Lee and Earl and not all the Kevin Smith movies, but Brody and all that. And he's only in it for a little bit. He gets put in traction. Dave can't be hurt.
In the very first scene, he's
put in traction. He's like, oh, well, you have to live with this guy that we're going to pay less money and pretend to be Dave. They replaced Dave with Toby. And Toby is just a younger version of Dave who likes video games.
Who is that guy?
Never seen him before.
I thought it was Chuck.
Chuck?
Chuck?
I don't know.
He looks like Chuck, but I don't think it's Chuck. He's annoying either way. He was a knockoff,
Dave.
Yeah.
And it's all because Jason Lee wanted too much money, I'm sure. Because you'd have to pay me a bunch of money to get into a Chipmunks movie.
Well, he was already underdog. You can't really go much lower than that.
Yeah, but he didn't have to show his face in that one.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there's a big difference. But as far as the quality of this movie, I mean, the kids were going nuts. The, I guess that's okay. I'll give the kids that.
Yeah, I sat through it and I tried to refrain from my, copyrighted snarl and sigh and disappointment, but because it's a kids movie, we can't go in there and be like, oh my God, it's a Chipmunks
It's
movie.
not Shakespeare.
We've got to really like this movie. And it's got to be a good movie. Got to win an Oscar. But no, it's garbage for adults. But the kids loved it.
I like kids movies. Like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is one of my favorite animated movies from last year. But this one, I don't know. It was really hard to get through.
Well,
And
no, it does a good job of. Well, Hollywood has done a good job of separating kids/adults movies and then kids movies. You know, you've got your Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is about 50-50. You know, the humor is for adults and for kids at the same time. And then Up and things like that are, there's
all the
a
Pixar stuff is everybody.
yeah, there's a defined line between the humor and everybody can enjoy it. But this was like, watch adult fall down, go boom kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the Family Guy type of humor that I don't really dig on.
God.
We
I
have
like-
the
Family Guy's funny.
Family Guy. We're not talking about Family Guy.
Let's talk about heroes.
No, we're not talking about Heroes either because I'll get all excited. But I mean, as far as it goes, the kids had a good time. It's not going to be uplifting to them. They're not going to learn anything. They're just going to, if you want to babysit them, you throw them in there. It's an hour and a half exactly. So, drop them off, come back, pick them up later, whatever you do with your kids. But don't suffer through it with them. This is not one.
No. Take your kids with as a group and just push them in there. Leave the bottles with the attendants and just have fun, kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not gonna. No, adults are not gonna like it.
Yeah. There's not too much more left to say
Not
about
really.
Chipmunks. I mean, if you want to watch a good one, watch the old movie from
Yeah.
1987, but don't bother with this one.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we'll move on.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
You want to speed that up?
I was
We're gonna
asleep.
Go 20 minutes.
I was asleep for half of it.
Well, you left.
Well, I had to leave because I wanted to.
You didn't have to leave.
I
You
wanted to be
wanted
somewhere
leave.
else. Yeah. So
Next up.
Yeah.
Next
Another
up.
movie I slept through, Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. There was no tagline with this one.
Nope.
No subtitles or anything.
Sherlock Holmes, the investigatical.
No, it's
Nope.
not investigator equal. What'd you think, Andrew?
I was kind of bored. I like Guy Ritchie films, especially that one with Madonna on the island. I really like Guy Ritchie films, and normally Guy Ritchie films are very talky. Like there's a lot of dialogue, and
It's clever though,
for the most part, it's clever and it's fun and funny and
and very British.
very, very British. And most of the time, I can understand what they're saying. But this was like, I don't know. It was Guy Ritchie. It was not Guy Ritchie. Like the visual style was very Guy Ritchie, but the story was different. It was like his take on, an action crime drama type thing. And there was a lot of cute, clever, funny parts, but for the most part, it was just too much talking. And it was ironic that
What do you want from a Sherlock Holmes movie?
well, and that's
Machine
exactly,
guns?
Well, that's exactly what I expected was that. But I expected with Guy Ritchie, and especially with today, nowadays, we'd be able to amp it up a little bit, and we did to a certain extent. But it was still very talky. And the irony is that the only actual not British person was the only person I couldn't understand. And he talked, and it was Robert Downey Jr., who talked in great length and was very, it was very throaty. And it was
I thought he nailed that British accent.
well,
though.
he did. He
You
does
were
a
afraid of
very-
that when we went in there. It was like, oh, he's going to go in there and do like a Sam Worthington and go in and out of the accent the whole time.
Yeah, he was
But-
very good with the British accent, but it was almost unintelligible at points. He was talking so fast that it got muddled.
Well,
it was
it's-
very pikey.
Well, it's Sherlock Holmes, and I mean, one thing I was afraid of in this movie was that they were going to take out all the drug use and just the kind of he's not really the greatest character to idolize. He's not really a hero or anything like that. He's a smart guy that has his vices, and they never show him like using any of these things or doing anything too, I guess, offensive. But they do hint at it, which was appreciated. as far as Robert Downey Jr.'s performance goes, I thought he was fantastic. I actually liked the dynamic between him and Jude Law, which in the trailer I thought it was going to be really silly because there's that part where there's like he's holding it's the piece from the bow from the violin. Is that what he's holding?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm holding it in your face. And he's like, get that out of my face. It's not in your face. It's in my hand. And they're arguing like little kids. And I don't want a little kid argument between Sherlock Holmes and Watson. You want to have that kind of team dynamic and go in there and do what they do.
It's
And-
very much like a superhero dynamic between like a Batman and Robin type. You know, they're in there and they're both fighting at the same time. It's not Watson. It's not a chubby Watson cowering in a corner while Sherlock kicks the crap out of everybody.
Yeah.
They're both seriously backing each other up.
And they were great. And I actually liked who was the I'm drawing a blank here on the name of the Lord Blackwood.
Lord Blackwood. I don't know who he is.
They added that kind of air of magic and mystery that are in a lot of the Sherlock Holmes stories, where something. It's not like a Scooby-Doo thing.
Yeah,
Like,
but they Scooby-Dooed it.
well,
It
they
was-
did kind of Scooby-Doo it in this, but they had to do something with it to add that little bit of magic in it. And they did go through and explain it all. And I think that's what I like is that detective work. When he goes through and does that real long monologue about you did this, and then this, and then this, and then this. I like that kind of stuff. I mean, I even like it parodied, like in the Ace Ventura movies when he goes through and names off everything. Because, I mean, honestly, they show you all that. And if you were paying attention, you probably would have seen it. But, I'm
No,
not.
I enjoyed that very much. I think it was everybody except Sherlock. When everybody except Sherlock and Watson and Blackwood were talking, that's when it got a little drawn out. It was the exposition, of the politicians in this like underbelly. It was remember From Hell. That it was very much like that in a more comedic sense. It was, and that's what it reminded me a lot.
Drug on forever.
Yeah.
This one had at least had a good pace to it, and it looked like Guy Ritchie was taking some bits from Fincher from just a little bit, but I do like his high speed, slow down. He kind of made Sherlock Holmes into like a martial artist.
Yeah.
And even when he's fighting, he's planning it out and he's using his brain to fight. Because in the trailer, you see some slow motion fights and you think, oh, this is going to be kind of like 300-ish or anything like that. But really, that slow motion thing is him plotting out exactly what moves he's going to go through. He's like, I'm going to throw an elbow block here, and then I'm going to do a choke slap, and then I'm going to hit him right here, and he's not going to recover for 3 weeks, and I'm going to hit him here, and that's going to make... And they slow it down for that.
Well, that's what I found out is that Sherlock Holmes was actually the first Western martial artist.
Oh, well then Guy Ritchie totally tricked me into learning something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think they've got a franchise on their hands here.
Yeah.
I think once they bring Moriarty in, which we got a little bit of a hint to.
Yeah, they dark the dark.
Yeah, they gotta
the
they gotta
Batman
cast him
Returns.
later,
Yeah, Batman Begins ending was good.
And as soon as they bring Moriarty in and if they stick to actual stories, like if they bring in Hound of the Baskervilles and they do all that, then I think you might have a franchise here. If you can pull Downey away from Iron Man and keep him into a little bit of a Sherlock Holmes, you could have something really good here. It's not going to be a revival for Guy Ritchie's career because I really doubt that he'll be brought back in for more sequels. I just don't see Ritchie as having the directorial chops to hold on to something like this. He's got his style, he does his thing, and if it's not that, you can tell that he's forcing it. This seemed a little forced. You can tell he was trying to save his career. But if you brought in somebody that can handle, well, just bring in Michael Bay, and then you just turn into Sherlock Holmes.
But then
Michael Bay
everything
style.
blows up.
Well, I'm just saying if you grab onto somebody like even the I'm trying to think of the guy's name from District 9. I think
Neil
if you
Blomkamp?
Blomkamp, is that who it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil Blomkamp. We got some peanut gallery.
Shut up, Logan. Yeah.
Directors don't
Neil
speak.
Blomkamp.
Yeah, I would like to see a younger director take on something like this, or somebody with the love of the story, like that amount of love that you saw for Jackson and the Lord of the Rings story, or for Del Toro and Hellboy stories. If you find somebody that has read these stories and really digs them that much and can hold on to it, that's who I think needs to take this over. If they do something like that, this could be something that we see for years and years. If Guy Ritchie does another one, it's probably going to be the same thing, kind of like a Lock, Stock, and a Snatch sort of thing, where they're interchangeable. And you can't do that with a movie franchise. You've got to have some kind of separation.
I did hear something in the underground about a modernized Sherlock Holmes.
Ew.
Instead of doing this, was doing a Sherlock Holmes now.
Like time
kind of
travel?
thing. No.
Like
Like
Austin Powers?
they take the same story except it all just takes place now.
I think the character of Sherlock Holmes in that time period is too strong to try and turn him around and do anything crazy. I really think he needs to stay right where he is. I just think we need a little bit stronger of a director to do it. But that being said, I enjoyed this movie, except the length of it. It's 2.5 hours, and there's really only about an hour's worth of point A to point B conflict resolution.
There's
It's
there's a backstory about Watson and his fiance or his girlfriend.
It just drags on too.
And that I think was an unnecessary. It's nice to get a little bit of backstory about Watson, but we don't. It's Sherlock Holmes. We don't
Yeah,
need.
it's not the Watson movie.
Yeah, we don't need to know that much about him, and I think that was all unnecessary. I think very little of it had. It helped with the personal relationship between Sherlock and Watson, but it was, I think, a totally unnecessary side story, and I think that's probably that entire thing probably could have been cut out and
Yeah.
helped with the length issue, because that's I think the general feedback I've gotten from everybody else who's seen it is that it was far too long.
Yeah, I say catch it on Blu-ray. See if you can watch as closely as Holmes can. You don't need to see it in the theater. And then just hope.
Oh, and the soundtrack was epic.
The soundtrack was really.
I absolutely loved the score. I don't know who did it, but it was awesome. So good job, whoever the hell you are. All right, so we'll move on now to Antichrist, whatever. I didn't see it.
Way to go.
I was tending to home people. And so Joel saw it all by his lonesome.
Yeah, what a great movie to make me watch all by myself. Antichrist.
So tell us about it, Joel.
You know what? I can't tell you too much about this movie on TV because it's really vulgar. It's got a surprising amount of gore to it, and it's also it's very arty. It's done by Lars von Trier, I guess, who added the von in his name after he left film school. But he's like Larry Trier. He breaks a lot of rules. We were talking about crossing the line, where you'll have, and we can't do it here, but if you watch the show closely, you can tell that I'm looking this way into blank space on the screen. And when Andy speaks, he's speaking
Hi,
into
I'm
blank.
speaking into this space.
See, those angles there that you're looking at, that's a natural angle. Now, if I were to all of a sudden jump over to the other side and we just had a cut to me where it's like I'm looking this way, boom, now I'm looking this way and I'm talking without showing any kind of transition, it's jarring, it's disorienting, and that's crossing the line. You put the camera at another spot. That's a rule that you're not supposed to break. And this guy broke it all the time. I had no idea where any of the characters were at any point in time during this movie. I mean, they're just all over the place. I can tell that it was an artistic choice. We're like, I'm going to confuse the people. And then basically think of this guy. I've never seen this guy. I don't know what he looks like. But I imagine him a very Tim Burton-y character, but more skinny and more hiding in a cave. In the very first scene of this movie, and I think it's rated R, but it really should have been rated like NC-17 or even X. Very first scene of this movie, I'm not going to spoil anything. You've got Willem Dafoe, who normally I really like. It's like a real close-up shot on his face. And if anybody's seen Willem Dafoe, you know you don't want to be close up on Willem Dafoe's face. Start off there, and then you show a couple of scenes like a shower thing, and then you show his wife, and she's smiling. Then you show the baby, and it's all in black and white, very arty. And then it cuts to, boom, full-on pornographic penetration. Out of nowhere. You know, I'm like, okay, first 3 minutes of this movie. And then after that, we cut back to the kid, the little kid in the crib. And he just opens the crib, he gets out, walks away, and they continue having the sex. And the kid jumps out of the window, 5 stories, just jumps out, right down. This is the beginning of Antichrist.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Are you guys stoked
Bring
yet?
the family.
Yeah, that is just the beginning. And throughout the whole rest of the movie, you're wondering, where this thing is going to go, because it really has no direction, and I don't know why it's called Antichrist. I was expecting like a big demon or something to show up or
Really?
something cool like that. Nothing has to do with Antichrist at all. Basically, what it is the wife gets understandably horribly depressed, and Willem Dafoe's character is a therapist who tries to be the husband, but he's more of the therapist. He plays it real stiff, real, just real blank faced. You don't really see much emotion happen on him at all. Which his son, I think it was, yeah, his son, who was like 3, I think, he was real distant to his son, and then his son is gone, and he completely shuts off all his emotion. I understand that could be an acting choice, but it seemed like he didn't really have anything to do. Then they go to this cabin in the woods for some reason, because Willem Dafoe thinks the best place to grieve your newly born son or newly dead son is to go to a cabin in the middle of the woods. So he takes his wife out there, and of course she has a freak out because it's in the middle of the woods, it's a cabin, and scary. She continually goes crazier and crazier, and you see a little bit of there's some weird animal like, I don't want to say it's like mutilation, but it's like like hardcore Animal Planet stuff. Like an eagle comes in and eats another like little baby eagle thing, and it doesn't make any sense with the movie, but it happens. And you have to watch that because well, I guess you don't have to. You can turn it off after the first 3 minutes, like I did the first time. But
So
I
you think
watched
they
it
were
for the
just
show, for you guys.
So you think they were just going for like a shock and awe type thing?
I really think it had to have been, because honestly, once they discuss that the son is dead and they're depressed or whatever, and it does those weird title cards, prologue, chapter 1, grief, chapter 2, despair, chapter 3, whatever, and each one of them could have been boring and you'd have been just fine. But each one of these is associated with an animal in the woods. That's how it ties together. Antichrist, couldn't tell you what that has to do with anything, but there is some really disturbing, disgusting, well done special effects in this. And if you think about the first 3 minutes of the movie, if you can go that far into it, really they have no problem showing nudity. The wife spends pretty much the entire movie with just a shirt on, completely, no pants, whatever.
She hot?
She's okay, I guess. But I mean, you see all these horrible. She's crying the whole time. I mean, it's hard to.
That's hot.
I'm just saying. It's hard to be horribly attracted to someone when they're bawling and hitting and mutilating people, maybe even themselves. Oh, spoilers! But it's hard to watch, and I watched it last night. I turned it on, I started watching it, and I started falling asleep, but since it was on a screener copy, I woke up the next morning, I watched it again because I thought, maybe I'm just crazy and I dreamed all that insanity. And so I started it over again. It's like, nope, all there. That's not just me being nuts. It really is disturbing. This is not something that anybody under 17 should watch. Even over 17, if you've got a weak stomach, don't watch this.
So don't take the wife to see
Don't take the pregnant wife out to see Antichrist. Really, unless you're just looking for some shock and some art film, stay away from this thing because it doesn't make any sense.
So it's not like a gore, like a horror film.
No, it's not like, blood sprays everywhere and, if you're a horror fan, you go, tee-hee, look at all the great special effects. It's disturbing. It's like Last House on the Left with the puncture wound.
Right.
Every single wound or kind of gore effect is done so realistic and, well, I mean, I haven't seen any of this stuff right out, but I assume this would be more like what it looks like other than like when you chop a zombie's head off and the blood sprays 10 feet in the air. Mm-hmm. That you can laugh at. This you can't laugh at. There's not a single point. I mean, my stomach was churning through a lot of this stuff. And I've seen a lot of horror movies and a lot of really disgusting, gore-filled, spectacular, things like that. But when these, and they're just real quick, when they happen, they are bothersome. And I saw some other reviews where people were like, this thing is just so moving and, emotional and all that. But it's it really, I don't see how it can be anything but vomit-inducing towards the end. I mean, in the beginning, when they're going through all those emotions, and the woman who plays Willem Dafoe's wife really does nail this thing. I mean, she's literally naked on screen the whole time, and it's hard to emote and to do any kind of acting where people pay attention to you when you're standing there naked, because being there naked is a shock in itself. But when you can pull off acting and putting emotion out there and standing up there just, naked emotionally and physically, that's really impressive. But then that ends, and you have to watch the rest of this gross stuff. I'll never watch this thing again. I mean,
Well, at least she's kind of hot.
you can judge for
That's
yourself.
priority there.
Yeah, I've seen the rest of the movie, so I know what happens, and I don't ever want to see it again. You can borrow my copy.
All right. Yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah, that's it for today.
Yeah. I don't know what we're seeing next week. I'm sure it'll be good.
Yeah,
Probably not.
check us out.
Check us out on Facebook. Search for Down in Front. Downinfront.blip.tv and little Huang.
Link.
And yeah, that's it. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for that.
That sucked. This is a boring episode. These movies were not good for this. I was nervous. Got all these people over here making me all nervous.
Yeah, we have an audience of how many now? And when there's a live studio audience, Amy chokes.
Good job.
Yay! So distracting. Usually when we have a PA to come out and give us a signal, they walk out and they do this. Amanda goes,